Okay, guys, we're all set. Good morning, everybody. My name is Matthew Rhodes. I'm with Foundation Learning Center, and Foundation Learning Center is a channel that we have initiated on Substack to give people some foundational understanding of what's going on with our government, what's wrong with our government, and what we as Americans should believe collectively, or at least as a people. So we keep it real basic. We're not news chasers in general. And the reason I'm coming to you this morning is because I wanted to talk to you about three men that I've met after doing a presentation in for the Saginaw County Republicans in Maine here. As you know, what I do for a living is I go around and I talk to people about how their government works, how it operates, some of the problems that exist with our government, and generally what we all seem to agree on in the freedom movement, that government is doing things that it shouldn't be doing, that the people are frustrated that they don't feel like they're represented. They feel like that there's something happening to their own towns and their state, which seems to be out of control, out of their grasp, and their ability to do anything about. And so, much of that solution for most people is just remember, to me, in my mind, what the founders believed. They believed that there was a certain point where you say to a government, this relationship's not working out. The things that you're doing are unacceptable. And so we find ourselves now at a point in time where people in America, particularly people in our towns, do not know how to protect themselves. They do not know how to set the proper boundaries. They don't even know the bounds of government. They don't know what their role is in government. And so I did a presentation for the Saginaw County Republicans on the nature of this, recurring problem because we're in this war. We seem to be in this giant barroom fight where everybody's swinging. Nobody knows who started it. And the solutions all seem to be fleeting. Some of the political parties think they're the answer. Some of these freedom groups think they're the answer. But it's never been very clear to anybody about exactly how they're supposed to act and what they're supposed to be doing on a daily basis. And so after doing this, most of my life, I finally ran into a couple of guys, a few guys and it's been a long time. And I say this, with my heart that I believe that these men that I'm going to introduce you to here with Civic-Chain are in possession of one of the most solid answers that will help Americans rein in their government, rein in and get control of some of the problems that we have. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the men from Civic-Chain. We have this morning with us Justin and Michael. I won't give you their last name. Of course, you can see Daniel's last name there. Both Justin and Michael are from Maine, and Daniel is from somewhere in the Everglades of Florida. So I just brought them on today to talk to you about what's going on in America and how they're going to fix it. So, good morning, guys. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. Great to see you. Always excited to see you guys. I'm very excited about what you guys are doing. So tell me a little bit about, before we get into like what blockchain is, which Civic-Chain is, let's talk about what the problem is that you believe in your mind what you're trying to solve.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Matt. And again, appreciate you having us on. Appreciate having the conversation. It's nice to find people that are looking for solutions. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of problems out there. A lot of people are fighting. A lot of people are trying to figure out what's going, ultimately. But if you focus on a solution, you can get there. And a little background on myself to kind of put context around how we got here and what we're doing. I built software delivery organizations for my whole career. It's what I've been doing. I go in, I find problems, I bring them transparently to the surface using there's a whole system. We can go down that rabbit hole later, but it's called Agile. But it's basically about taking whatever processes an organization is doing and then bringing them to a level of transparency so leaders can make informed, empowered decisions. That's literally the basis of it. And then you come together as a team and you make the solution work. And I thought the same thing could be applied to government. At the end of the day, nobody knows who started. Nobody knows, like you said, it's like a barroom fight. We woke up and found ourselves in this problem. How do you quantify the problem? How do you really explain the problem to people to make it make sense? And I'll touch on blockchain a little bit here. I don't want to get lost in the technology because there's a lot of buzz around it and all that kind of stuff. It's not about that. Like at the end of the day, we don't all understand exactly how the internet works, but it's a part of our life and it works. It's a technology stack. And that's all I want to look at this is a technology stack. It's a tool and you can use it however you need to. And so the goal behind Civic Chain really, it started years ago, just conversations we were having about The idea of a smart contract, which is a blockchain thing. So I got to touch on it a little bit. Basically, think of it like a transparent contract. It's a code contract, and the contract either works or it doesn't. And if you think today, like if a contract doesn't work, a bunch of us have to go in a room. There's a man in a robe. We argue with each other. We take words on paper and say, my words on paper are better than your words on paper. And I'm going to tell you why. And you can fight back and forth. And then there's appeals processes and all this stuff. And it takes weeks and months and years and all of that. A smart contract is the same idea, but it's codified in code. So it either works or it doesn't. You don't need a team of lawyers. You need a dev, somebody like Dan, who can look at it and say, is the code going to execute or is it not? Oh, there's money in the contract. Is the contract going to do the exchange or not? Are the parties going to enable that contract to do the exchange or not? It's very yes or no. It's very black and white. It's very clear, honestly, when you look at it. And so my thought was, it came to be during the Corona era when everybody was kind of a little frustrated with the way things are running. I said, we can do this better. I thought, I don't want masks and lockdowns and fear and all this. I was like, we can do business without all this. We can do business with a sense of clarity. And so when you look at a smart contract, anyone, anywhere can look at the code and see if it's going to work or not. So Civic-Chain was born when you think about that. So the idea behind Civic-Chain is we can take government procurement, government fulfillment, and contract delivery and put it in a transparent system. So you can see every dollar, you can see every action, you can see who approved the action, on what date, at what time, in what location, for what dollars, and where did they go to the minute. And so basically, the idea comes down that we can create a contracting system, and we have. The code is ready. The solution is in great shape. And my gentleman here can speak to that way better than I, right? I'm not the product guy. Justin's the product guy, and he's designed something wonderful. Dan is the technical guy, and he is our IT wizard when it comes down to it to put this together. But at the end of the day, the goal is that, for instance, I'm a homeowner. I own a home in Bowdoin, Maine. I love my town. I love the people around me. There's a great farming community here. But I also look around next door in Lisbon, Maine, where their property taxes were going to go up 45%. I look at Lewiston, Maine, 25 minutes away, where they're fighting a 300% revaluation in property tax. Why? Why? And so my goal with this is not to tell people what to vote for, what to spend it on, who should do what, when, and where. I don't care. Ultimately, I'm not responsible for that. I just want it to be transparent. I want us to be honest about it, and I want every dollar accounted for. When you In setting up IT delivery organizations, I realized any system of people and tools and mechanisms is just a machine. And at the end of the day, the machine will produce exactly what you design it to produce. When you include lobbying, you're producing legal bribery. When you're putting in no bid contracts, you're producing the opportunity for fraud. And I know fraud is a very big narrative these days, and a lot of people are starting to realize how much fraud the system is wrought with right now. My goal is to go in and say, okay, and like for instance, I said Bowdoin. I don't believe Bowdoin is doing fraud. I don't. But I would love to make their books fully transparent so they can prove they're not doing it. And to be honest, like I said, I truly believe they're not. But some of the entities they interact with may have difficulties with that. Some of the area, I mean, there's county officials, and I'm not saying anybody's anything, right? But I'm saying there's layers and layers and layers of the town leads to the county, leads to the state, leads to the federal. Somewhere along the way, the money doesn't always get where it's going. And I just want to be able to see that. That's probably the simplest way to put it. Gentlemen, do you have anything to add?
Justin?
No, yeah, just all
Yeah.
about anti-fraud here and just trying to get rid of that concept of just people getting kickbacks for the smallest things. In my local town, we have someone getting kickbacks for literally $500 for a over 150 development plat. So
Yeah, how do we track where the money's going? How do we know? And many times people don't know, and so they're fighting, but they don't know who they're fighting against or what their the obvious solutions are. And the main thing that I found when I walk around, I go around New England, is people don't even know why their towns are broke in the first place, and why there's this complete dependency on grant money, grant systems. And this seems to be this, a feeding frenzy that goes on week after week without accountability. And so you guys are here to create visibility at every level of government, and if people want to see it, it's there. You're giving them the tools. Am I correct in saying that this is the tool for the average person to just pick it up? If you want to know what your government's doing, it's right here. We're not making any judgments. That's not your purpose to go around like expose evildoers. That's not the point. The point is, you're giving the citizens a tool that they could use to help each other and help bring accountability to government. So,
Hmm.
and I think there's no American that would be not okay with that, as far as I can say. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's been our kind of um, our cornerstone or our keystone to this business the entire time is that we're trying to develop tools that enable people to thrive and in communities the ability to reduce invisible taxes such as fees that are coming from card processors or incumbents, other current municipal vendors may have been complacent in their business model, and the fees go up every year because inflation does as well. What we're doing is we're introducing new technology that enables people to, like I said, reduce the invisible fees. But as I was saying, the keystone or the cornerstone of our business has been that good tools are the ones that you reach for. So this isn't like a carrot on a stick. There is no reason that we are incentivizing states, municipalities, enterprises, school districts, HOAs. We're not incentivizing anyone, excuse me, other than with the fact that this is more efficient. We're moving money faster and cheaper than ever before. And that's the only reason that it is competitive. So we really believe in a solution that's kind of like rising tide floats all ships, where there's no downside to this other than to the greed that has been embedded in the current system. So with these efficiencies, the tool set that we have is at its core kind of a transparency layer as a service. That's really been what everyone has been interested in and what people really support because not only have it's almost like municipalities, states, and governments right now have a toolbox that just hasn't been organized. And, there's stuff in the bottom that's really valuable and that's great. We can build on that. We can work with that. But we're handing them kind of an all in one Swiss Army knife that solves all of their problems. And at the core, that is the transparency layer as a service. The core product is kind of the ability to not replace, but show. So we're shining a spotlight on what already exists. Maybe you want to digitize your town and their budget workflow because it's currently done in CSV, Excel spreadsheets that they post on a website every 2 weeks after a town hall meeting. We're just making that easier to visualize for everybody. And when you bring a light to an issue, then not only do you help guide or facilitate a natural path, but we're kind of scaring away the cockroaches as well.
Yeah, one little idea to dovetail on there to make it real for people. So a tangible example of how this works would be, say, a plow truck driver or a road crew member with your Department of Public Works goes and fills up the truck with diesel. They swipe the card that's connected to our system, and the full amount is fully visible to anyone. And I don't just mean like anyone in the town, anyone in that space, anyone. It's on the blockchain, which is basically infrastructure built on the internet, public visible infrastructure built on the internet, which is being used today for banking services and all kinds of things in multiple countries on multiple continents. So it's not like some meme coin thing, which is why I try to shy away from the blockchain aspect, because there's been a lot of bad press, FTX blowing up and meme coins, stuff like that. We're not that. We're using that technology, but we're using it in a more mature model. And so he swipes the card, he or she swipes the card, they drive off the lot from the gas station, and before the tires hit the pavement, the entire town or any interested party can see that it was, with prices today, $120.37. The budget line item that came from had $150,000 left in it, and you are currently on burn down or off burn down to be under budget or over budget by this date. And it's completely transparent. And so there isn't the ability, oh, we lost the receipt. Oh, it was overcharged. Oops, they bought McDonald's with it. Nothing like that. everyone can see every layer and detail of that transaction from point A to point B. Card 3, truck 2, this much money, this date, this time. It doesn't leave the room for fraud. If you incent, people aren't inherently bad or evil. I truly believe that in my heart of hearts. There's divinity in every heart. But if you incentivize people to do the right thing, they always will. If you incentivize people to do the wrong thing, I don't blame them for doing it. Humans are utilitarian and they do what makes sense to them in that moment. So if we build the incentive structure, and that was my point about designing the system, if we build the incentive structure of these systems to incentivize and reward the right behaviors, people will do them. If you go out of your way to do the wrong thing, not only does it take work to do the wrong thing, but it's obvious as hell to anyone watching because everyone gets finance director level eyes into every penny being spent on their town ledger. Hope that
What
makes
I
sense.
find amazing about this, guys, is that, this is something you hear all the time, echoing throughout every, rally, is that we want a government that's accountable. We want a government that's visible. And but they don't really know the mechanisms for how that would work. And so, and I don't know if you've seen, there's a meme going around saying that right now we're completely transparent. Our lives are, through Palantir and all that, we're completely exposed, everything we do, but government is completely hidden, and it should be the opposite. And the idea that trust is, yeah, would we like to, this isn't, we're not saying everybody that becomes elected is distrustful, but we want to understand people to know that if Americans were good with money, like if your average town was good with money, saving, putting money away for a rainy day, they wouldn't be running into those situations they have. And so this creates an opportunity for people to say, hey, where's the money going? What are we doing? And anybody, any company that would run under this model would know that it's important, because you want people to be able to learn from mistakes, see visibly from 10,000 feet, where are we making mistakes? What could we be doing better? Where could we be spending money in a better way? Particularly like with long-term projects where, you see these investors come in, hey, you need an $11, $1 million theme park that's going to create profit for your town. But we could actually see a massive project like that in real time. We could see, and we could actually do an analysis of that and then show everybody that in real time. So this,
Absolutely.
and so this covers everything for everybody. So, and obviously you guys have done a lot of work on this. So what right now would be your largest target audience that you believe would be, who are you looking to talk to first?
So ultimately, everyone who has ever paid a property tax or lives in a place where that impacts their cost or living in their life. More narrowed and focused, I would say town select boards, mayors, governors, individuals that are town clerks. The town clerk, it
Mm,
would interact with the system daily, and honestly, it would make their jobs easier in a lot of
mhm.
cases. Yes, it's a new system, but a good example is I know in Maine right now, one of the big issues is the state is asking all the towns for audits, and some of the towns are 2 to 5 years behind, never done an audit, no idea how to do an audit.
Oh, you guys just froze
I don't know
up a
what's
little
in an
bit.
envelope. I don't know what's on a desk. I don't know what's in a file folder. But going forward, that audit would be about 3 button clicks. Here's every transaction we've done on everything in the last year. Here you go. There's my
Mhm.
audit. There it is. Every dollar and penny accounted for. The way I see this is kind of like if folks remember the Twitter files where they dumped a bunch of information, people picked it apart and went through it and actually drew diagrams and built pictures around that data. My goal is the individual can do this for every town, every county. And a good point, like Justin made, this is not just exclusive to government. Now, we are marketing to small government first because I believe we could do the most good impact for the most people the quickest there. And honestly, I say it with my hand over my heart, we can bring down property taxes, which is an unheard thing. It's unheard of. I've never had that. It always goes up, number up only. You can cut out waste, fraud, and sometimes it's just accidents that happen. A good example, there was a town we talked about recently where they bought a fire truck and then accidentally bought the same fire truck again. And you can't undo that. You can't return a $1.2 million customized
Mhm.
fire truck. Or if you resell it, you're automatically going to take a giant haircut off the top of that. Stuff like that, where people would say, why are you about to buy another fire truck? Shows right here on the ledger you bought one a month ago or 6 months ago, whatever. It just eliminates the ability for mistakes like that. Now, can mistakes still happen? Sure. But if they do, people can catch it within a minute. People can call the town office and say, oops, you swiped the card in the wrong direction, and I saw you do it. You should reverse that so we don't get charged more property taxes. That
And this,
simple.
and this reminds me of like where, we talked about in the past, you and I and three of us, is about how, a lot of times you get people go into office, they expect there to be this kind of easy ride. They're just going to kind of be trusted by the people to do whatever they want to do. And we can't, unfortunately, yeah, is it going to make it difficult for the elected? Well, that's the job. This isn't something where nobody asked you to, this was, told you that life was going to be easy. Every job has its challenges. Every job is required. There's an accountability, and I mean, my job, I'm accountable to people. You guys have the same thing. Justin, you wanted to say something.
Oh yeah, I had a point about the target audience. That Michael said something interesting about how we are marketing towards municipalities, towns, and that's where we're starting. That's because of what we know. I think collectively we have nearly 40 years of government and municipal experience when it comes to providing services to government of all sizes, from townships to state and federal. Michael and I have come from a considerable term in government work, and I know that Dan has as well. I know he has very specific DoD experience, but we're focused on that solution because we know it extremely well. We know the pain points that come from small towns, large towns, entire states, because we've worked with them for close to a decade on my end, and I know a decade definitely for Michael. But I was selling to towns. I was going in and doing discovery sessions and hearing exactly what town clerks, town managers are looking for when it comes to solutions. And that's why we built this. We didn't build this because we have a bone to pick. I'm not doing this just because I think it's incredibly lucrative and it's going to change my life. I'm not going to buy a yacht from this. I want to provide the future that I would like to have for other people, and if that's reducing friction in payments, invisible taxes, in the fees that are compiled. There's so many layers of fees that we're just trying to cut through it all and provide a real civic service with Civic-Chain.
Yeah. And to dovetail a point there, you brought up HOAs as well. Our product would work for that. I've actually had a bunch of interest from HOAs saying, hey, we can put our books completely transparent, and now there's no issues as well here. So it's basically anywhere where there's an agreement between people that need to pool money for collective services, products, infrastructure. A good example is I've had interest coming from public-private partnerships where public money will be spent on a large order of magnitude for electrical infrastructure for the public, but it's done by private contractors. And did the contract, was it an effective spend? That's the question I had from people who are signing large checks around doing this. They're like, we don't know if it's an effective spend. We're trying to do the best good for the people. We want to make sure we get the most power poles, the most lights, the most transformers, the most all of that. But it's hard because the data can be murky at times at multiple levels for multiple reasons. Now, I know people who are working in AI as well, doing data aggregation around that. So if you were to plug that into the monetary data aggregation, you would have a very clear picture of whether or not that was an effective spend or whether or not 30% of that was going in somebody's cousin's, consulting firm's pocket. I don't know. And I don't want to make a point and say you did this or you did. I just want it to be honest. I want it to be transparent. If we can start from there, I think we can build some really incredible things as humans again. I look at a little off topic here, but I look at the art. I walk around in town, I see buildings, and I see the modern style of design is so brutal. So every corner is efficient. There's no room left for beauty. Beauty costs money, and that can't be put into the budget. Yet I look at these old stone buildings where somebody carved a stone relief on the side of it, took the time to express beauty. I want to get to a time where we're not worried about pinching every penny and we can express beauty again as a civilization. I want to build majestic things again. I really would. I look at cathedrals and they blow me away. And I say, why aren't we doing that now? Let's do that
Yeah, well,
now.
there's definitely ample money out there. Like, why? Let's look at what our abilities are in real time. Like you said about when you start, you take a year gone by of the entries into this ledger you're talking about. Then over a year's time, you could do an analysis of that and say, well, where are we going? What does it look like? What are the real time goals? And what is the purpose of our town? Is it to establish? I've always thought that towns have a difficult time establishing themselves as a culture in the way they used to do. Every little town in Maine you go to, they have this little section with these little, I don't know, brick structures. I mean, they have them down here in Benton, in Fairfield. definitely, Augusta, Waterville. And there's always that section where like some people said, hey, we have some time and money to do this, and let's build let's build permanent structures. Let's build things that are, will stand the test of time. And that's a great thing. And who doesn't want visible for you, as Justin said one time when we were talking, who doesn't want like now, the biggest thing is, you'll talk to somebody, I talk to people all the time. They're like, well, we want to hold people accountable. We want to have an audit, like they're doing down in Massachusetts. They want to audit the state legislators. There's no end to what this can do. And that's what people need to know. The solutions are here. Now, you talked to one time about, and one of the things, and I always hear the urgency in your voice. You guys are great to talk to. I wish everybody in the world could meet you guys personally to see, to me, how amazing this is, knowing, the amount of experience and that I've had around people, listening to them talk. I mean, there is nothing here that you guys are saying that doesn't encompass the entire principled belief of the entirety of the freedom movement in America. This is the language that they come back to every time. Who is doing what with our money, and do they have their permission to do it? And can everybody see it in real time? I mean, anybody could say, oh, well, I'm reducing the budget by 30%. Oh, well, show me. Well, right now we can't do that. We have to take their word for it from a meme that we found on, Facebook, right? That's what it is. So I know you talked about, I want to talk about the urgency of this product, and I know, and why now, because, you and I touched about on another conversation about Department of Homeland Security getting involved in this type of situation. And once that happens, obviously, once the government gets involved with it, it's what you're talking about, the visibility, that's going to be out of the public's hand, because, once the government controls it, they'll make it say whatever they want to say. I mean, government has not been always transparent about what they're doing with our money. We know that. There's nobody that can disagree with that. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, So does that form part of the urgency? Like we're looking at, the federal government just taking over the things that we should be doing ourselves. It's people, right? The people who are the masters of the government. This is something we should be doing, and they're going to be like, well, you know what? Guess what? We're going to watch your towns for you now. We're going to make sure that you have all the EI, whatever they call it, EIO programs in place, and we're going to just we're going to monitor you now. And so we want to talk about that a little bit. Just
Yeah,
anybody?
sure. The urgency is real. And I talk about blockchain, and again, it's not sexy, it's not well liked, it's got a bad name, but ultimately this technology is here and it's coming. What you're referencing there is exactly the Department of Homeland Security has a bunch of contracts that are, you can go look this stuff up. It's public right now. Go take a peek, right? Don't trust me for it. They have a bunch of contracts out for everything from ID verification and alternative systems to the social security number. All this stuff is coming. You can say, oh, I'm not going to do that. We all saw COVID. We all lived through that. We know when government says, hey, here's a thing, and you're going to do it, it happens. It gets incentivized. Towns get paid to do it. So people do it. They just do the thing. They go, it's easier not to fight it. And I'm not saying people are weak. I'm saying they don't have a tool. You need the tool to be able to do that. And so I say it's coming anyway. Either A, we can build a transparency layer with it for your town, for your county, for your school district, for the municipal bond market if we had to, because that's a whole other conversation about the credit cards they're taking to keep up appearances right now. That's
Right.
what the bond market is. It's a giant IOU payable by your children and their children on your property tax. That's real and it's happening. So I look at that. I also see the Department of Homeland Security and other groups, like I heard you say Palantir, exactly, data aggregating onto the blockchain in an immutable record. And that's one thing I want to stress about this technology is it's immutable. It cannot be changed after the fact. It's basically like if you had an Excel spreadsheet that saves publicly every X amount of time, every minute, every second, every hour, whatever it is, dependent upon the blockchain, and it creates a like a snake of them, like a layer of Excel pages saved, saved, saved. So you can go back and you can pull the one from 47 hours ago, and it's going to stay exactly there, and no one can edit it because it's already out in the public. And if you could do that and manipulate the technology, everyone would see it, and the edit would be self-evident. And so that technology stack is coming. The way I see it, either A, we build a transparency layer for it to put the government in a transparent state, or B, it's used on us and these large international megacorps. I don't want to call anybody out by name, but I know BlackRock has a lot of interest in blockchain. They got the Bitcoin ETF. They've been in that space for a while now. They're bringing that. So either A, we can bring it to help as a tool for the individual provide themselves liberty. And I use that word meaningfully. I have had people to my face tell me, Mike, this is liberty technology. I had somebody else tell me to my face, you are building freedom technology. These people did not know each other. They did not communicate. They just inherently saw this when they saw the product. So either A, we can use blockchain for liberty technology, or B, it can be a uniform ledger to tell us all where to be, how to be, what our money looks like, when we can spend our money, where we can spend our money. Digital currency is a programmable money. You can put all kinds of agreements baked into it. I would rather they be transparency ones for the governmental structures than they be something used on me. I don't like that. I like
Right.
liberty.
Yeah,
So my goal is to
that's
get people
that.
addicted to transparency and promote liberty, honestly.
Yeah, well, and there's nobody in this, I could see would have a problem with this in any way. Um, Everybody across the country, they're scurrying like cats, and so just going around the room real quick, I wanted to ask each one of you, like, what is your, what motivates you to do this? And I guess why you think you're fit. What about you think you think you're this is appropriate to you, and who are you, like where do you come from, what's your background, like Daniel, like why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what motivates you, and why Daniel.
Sure. I've been programming since the age of 10. Been doing this for a very long time. Been doing it professionally since I was about 14 to 15. Just I've been involved in blockchain too since probably block number probably in the thousands, low thousands. Just because I just been trying to keep up with all the different ways of how to do decentralized databases and all that good stuff that we can get into later. But basically, I've just been kind of over it too, over all the fraud, over all the inability to see where the money's going. In my local municipality, we actually have to request to see those records. We have to pay someone to get those records. So we can't even just look up the data for free on a public ledger, on a public graffiti wall, essentially, and I can determine the numbers myself. So I really do want to see people change their way that they're going about with the government infrastructure around them. I want people to just start talking about not only sports and gossip, but also to start talking about the events that are happening right around their backyard. Um, Big developments, who's getting the money. Most of the times it's nationals, it's not even local companies, and a lot of people are upset at that too. So you'll be able to see things like that on the ledger, who's getting the money, who's not. I kind of think we can
You care
push.
about people, it's interesting. If anybody, I always like to say to people that are listening, maybe you don't get this when you hear other interviews and things like that, but and anybody that knows me knows that I don't trust anybody, and I don't have a general good feeling about anybody. There's been a lot of gimmicks I've run into in my life, and I want everybody that's listening, whoever may run into this, to know that these are the nicest guys you ever meet in your life. There's a good feeling about them. You're around. They're just good people, and you can, I believe you can trust them at their word of what they're saying, because and as what you just said so beautifully there, Daniel. Thank you for saying all that, because it was very personal, and that's what everybody needs to see. That these aren't a couple of guys who are just going, "Hey, look at me, I'm really cool and I'm awesome and I have a perfect smile." They're saying, "Hey, we want you to be able to do the things that you in everyday life that you should be allowed to do." Justin, you want to tell us a little bit about you, like why Justin, like what makes you so special?
What makes me special? I don't know. But what makes me good for this task is, yeah, I didn't take any of this very seriously for the longest time. I actually was a hippie all through high school. And then I went through the classic transformation of getting serious about life once I had kids. So that's been kind of my overarching I guess the driving force has been wanting to make a change, a positive change that would roll to the future. And so the biggest issues that I was constantly seeing, that I was constantly faced with, especially in my local sphere, was the mismanagement of funds and the fact that Mike brought up the fire truck example previously. That I was actually in a local town that I'm from, and then there was also a six-figure fraud case that recently hit, and that could have been avoided just by having verifiable wallets and vendors. So we just want. I personally want to produce tools that solve problems, and that's been my career ever since I got in technology. I started 10 years ago selling these types of solutions to local states and municipalities. And then eventually I got into the product development aspect when we weren't going out and shaking hands during COVID. But yeah, I was hands off for the longest part of my life because I was raised by my grandfather, who was a World War II veteran. And he would just tell you repeatedly that all politicians are crooks. Don't trust them as far as you can throw them. And that was my opinion as well. And I didn't get to really take a look at that until later in life, when I realized that it's not really about left versus right or which team you're on. I'm just trying to produce something for the people because it's us. That's the important part. Is I really want to make a difference in the microcosm, because I don't think that you can make a bigger difference without starting small. So I take the kids out. We pick up trash after trash day. I really want to make a change on the local level because I know that reverberates. As for what I see in the future, this is foundational stuff. We've been thinking about this for 5 years. Within the past 11 months, we filed 4 patents just on this technology. And that was because we saw a problem. We saw a shortcoming in the current system, and we decided the technology had caught up enough that it was time for us to do it. So the technology is still catching up. What we're producing is actually cutting edge, which is really exciting. And that's been kind of my focus. Is I like to be close to the new technology. I like to see change, and I like to create change. So that's why we made Civic-Chain.
Thank you. And that's great. Everybody should listen to these guys talking honest, straightforward, practical. That's one of the things when I think about you guys, I think these are the 3 most practical people. I mean, none of these solutions should be that complicated, and they all are concomitant with the idea of freedom. So, excuse me, Mike. So you want to tell everybody why Mike? Who is Mike?
Yeah. So a lot of different things. It's hard to do the I Love Me book and tell you all the great things I did, but I've done everything from 911 response, EMS, seeing people at their worst, seeing people on the highway broken and fractured and having to pick them up in a chaotic situation and tell them it's going to be all right. And in most cases, it was all right. And that's the goal, right? I
Yeah.
like more good than not. I spent a lot of time as what's known as a Scrum Master in the software space. I've been a release train engineer. So a Scrum Master runs a team, but they run a team as a servant leader. It's a leadership role, but you serve the team. That's the goal. So you don't like work for everybody and do what they tell you. It's more of a servant. Like your whole role is to provide value to them and to enable them to be able to do what they do best. You hire smart people so they can do good things. And so my goal was to get them enabled to do those things better. I did that as a release train engineer at the team of teams level, and I've done that at the enterprise level as an agile coach, setting up these programs to the scale of, as some of you folks know, I was on the NMCI contract, or the engine, the next generation network, the Navy's network. 65 teams, 650 plus staff, and myself and one other coach were the senior enterprise coaches setting up the whole framework for them. So designing the big systems think machine, right? How do you get that machine to work? And I look at this no different. I zoom out to the world and I look at the state of things. I have friends that live in Kazakhstan that tell me bribery's baked in. If you want to build anything at the town level, you have to budget double the amount, half for the work, half for the bribes. And that's totally accepted business practice there. And I look at that, I'm like, we can do better. And so I look at this same problem the same way. I say, okay, how do we design the system in a way to incentivize it right? And so I look at that. I'm also a farmer. Those of you who do know, I have, a lot of chickens. I have sheep. I have baby geese right now, 9 little ones, and another mother sitting on eggs. I've raised cows. And I taught all myself this stuff. And ultimately, it comes down to the cycles in life of death, or like cycles of life and death, the cycles of how nature works and all of that. And I kind of see it in the machine too. So I look at the human aspect of it. I say, how do we design the machine so it works better for the, how do I enable the average person, the average town? How do I enable a town manager to say, how do I get my budget under control? Because what I say by this, and I love the messaging of we're not looking to point at the bad guy because people tell me, oh, government's never going to want that. No, actually, I've had quite the opposite response. I've talked to a lot of finance directors. I've talked to town managers. I've talked to select boards. I've talked to individual towns, the people themselves. Most of them want to do the right thing. Most of them want to make sure they're successful because those select board members, they're not bad. They're not out to get you. They live in that community too. They have a house there too. Like Justin's example, their children live there too. But if they don't have the tool, if they're not enabled, if they don't have a servant leader thinking of how you can structure these things to enable them, who's going to do it? And so it's just one of those like, who better than I? To quote
Yeah,
Kanye,
well, and then
you
that's
all
something
could
you've
have.
done all your life. You're a guy that,
Yeah,
like, if I started saying working for you, you'd make me best at whatever I do. That's what I did
that's
in,
cool.
in my occupation. You
Yeah,
find the skills, you find out what people are good at, you find out what they want, and then you help them become the best they can. And the common need that Americans seem to have at this point is to not feel like that their government is this, because it's easy to go government's corrupt and evil when you don't understand the processes, and the people in the government don't understand their own process. They're not even,
incentives,
they can't see it.
incentive structures.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not, it's like a couple that never balance in their checkbook every month, month after month. They're just going, yeah, let's hope that we have enough money to, and meanwhile, they're going out to eat every day. I mean, the, we're not looking at changing the way Americans think. We're looking at restoring almost a culture. That's
Yeah,
what we're doing. We're restoring Americans have gotten into, this cholesterol. They've broken away from government as a necessary evil. Which is how our founders thought. The government was necessary. You're going to have it. It was a negative force, but now government's become a positive force, and it's always like, well, we're going to do this because we think it's good, and it's a good idea, and there's no forethought. I can tell you about this all across New England. Selectmen, towns, just bad investments, and so let's try to go through this. We got about 20 minutes left, and there's a lot here that I want to cover. Um, so I wanted to ask you a little bit about where you stand politically, because obviously the big thing in everybody's mind is going to be, are you a MAGA supporter, or are you Joe, whoever you are, everybody identifies, but by what tribe you've joined. So, and obviously the best American is somebody that hasn't joined the tribe, because, we have a uniform culture. It's in the Declaration of Independence, that government is to protect our inalienable rights. And that's it. Leave us alone. Let us do our thing. We're not going to hunt dogs on each other's property. And I'm not going to come over to Michael's house and kill his cows and eat them, and I'm not going to go into, America is based on natural positive law. And so we shouldn't be getting tribal. We shouldn't be getting, looking at an interview like this and going, where do these guys believe? Who do they vote for and stuff like that? So without going too much into that, tell us a little bit about yourself politically. Like, where do you stand?
I'll take that one. Too easy. In 2016, I unregistered to vote. Most folks don't know that's a process that your state houses generally will work with you on, or at least may have a procedure for doing. I was living in New Hampshire at the time, and I said, this system does not serve me. You can pick your favorite savior figure, but every time they get in, it's always more war, more bombs, more waste. And maybe wars are meant to be fought. Again, I don't even want to make a judgment on that, but I don't want to be the guy that says that's the thing I want. I unregistered and I said, I'm going to fix this a different way. I'm not going to do the same thing we've always done, because what we've always done got us here, and it taught us a lot of lessons. And the lesson it taught me is that we need to do things a little different, or it's just going to keep getting worse. And so that's where I stand politically. I don't want a savior figure, and I don't want anybody to look at me as a savior figure. I want to give people the tools to empower themselves so they can take care of themselves. That's where I stand politically.
That's beautiful. I love that. I can't even tell you how awesome that is. You have my vote in case you ever do. But let's remember that there should be no political parties in America, and they attach them to the worst part of the worst portion of human nature. George Washington said, and there's no reason for us to be tribal. We do have a common heritage, and we can return to that common heritage, here today. That's why I'm so excited about this. I do. So Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself. Everybody that's listening, they want to know if you're a communist or not, or and you don't have to, but again, generally speaking, what do
Yeah,
you?
I used to consider myself a bit of a doomer, an accelerationist, looking for the current system to restart. Just because I never have had a lot of faith in political parties. I think that political establishments tend to serve themselves more than the people. Certainly not a communist or interested in any market Marxist ideologies. I love this country, and if I didn't, I would leave. Um, so I went from I guess, you know, your teen aggro years of being anti-establishment to just understanding you need to make a change if you want to see a change. And I I would rather see the people make that change than an elected official. So I'm looking for a system that I guess gives the power back to the people and enables us to make decisions collectively rather than through a system that has margins built in or percentages to calculate and um, yeah, and other motives, ulterior motives. So I'm looking for this to be less transactional and more formation of our freedoms. Where I sit politically, I don't I don't think I would speak about it in polite company because I don't like the current system. I don't like the current people. I don't like the talking heads. I'm not real impressed with how argumentative and childish everyone is. I don't like that everything looks like it's WWE on TV. I miss a professional atmosphere. I miss a polished, I guess, refined nature to politics. And I really hope that we could come together with a direction that isn't self-servient. And I don't know, everything looks to me like NASCAR right now. You just have different stickers on different politicians.
That's
I
true.
don't have an affiliation.
No, that's good. There are definitely that. I mean, it seems like we become drawn, you know, identify or these solutions to problems. If you listen to how these candidates are running for governor in Maine, particularly, it's so easy to listen to that they're creating solutions. But then what happens is the solutions that they invent actually become the identity of the people who are voting for them. Then that becomes what America is, who their solutions are. And so they associate, oh, well, we're supposed to bomb this country or that country, or we're supposed to whatever it is, whatever these politicians say, their solutions become the identity, whereas the identity is already established, as it's called, the altars and thrones. The altar in this, you can always identify every culture throughout time from its altars and thrones, its belief systems, its ideology, and its structural inheritance, that is a manifestation of that ideology. And in this case, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the altar and the throne. And so we have lost that regard. I believe blockchain, civic blockchain, what you guys are doing is something that should have occurred naturally if Americans were doing their job, if
Mm,
we were holding people accountable, but we don't because we've become, we went from government as a necessary evil to government as a preserver of unity
mm,
to, governor as, the committee of experts, the committee of the competent, the people that are going to run our lives and take care of us. And so in a very short time, less than 120 years, the republic has changed. And so blockchain, in my mind, if people are listening to this correctly, this is what you should have been doing all along. And this gives you that tool to do that easily. Daniel, I forgot what the question is. What do you like long walks on the beach? No, so what do you so tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Daniel.
So in high school, I was the kid that would always party with everyone at the lunch tables, different cliques. Never really had a one single clique that I would hang out with the entire time. When I was young, I was also a Detroit Lions fan. I learned very quickly to not, be a cheerleader for teams. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed a lot of times. So from there, I just kind of politically speaking, just kind of went to more the individualist route. High school was the trope of being a libertarian, blah blah blah. Then you learn a little bit more about economics and the real world, and you go, okay, so it needs to be a little more balanced than that. But yeah, just more of an individualist, a centrist. Anything that can provide more power to the people collectively is part of my party.
So
That's it.
you guys are really concerned about what Americans were always concerned about in the beginning is self-government.
Yep.
That's, we always think it's taxes. Taxes really weren't what defined us as whether or not we have taxes are illegal and all this nonsense. Taxes are legitimate. It's in the Declaration of Independence. Legitimate taxes, the proper use of government, anything, government should be everybody wants to be free of the bonds of unnecessary government. And can the people do it? Well, yeah, if they can, give them the tools. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. That's what I
One,
want people
one,
to
one
see.
thought in there, Matt. Just my experience with this is, I spent time when I was a medic. I was also a combat medic in the Army as well. It's how I got my EMT, and I commissioned as a commissioned officer in the in the Medical Service Corps. That said, as a leader of soldiers, I've seen what a governing system by autocracy can look like, where you take command, you do thing, you're going to go do it because I said so. And everybody's very uniform. They wear uniforms. The personality is strict. The hair is shaved. The face is shaved. The look is uniform. You remove the individuality of the human, which is, it's a very effective unit if you want to accomplish that thing. My goal to accomplish that thing, like I was talking, the majesty of cathedrals and building giant, beautiful things from that come out of the human spirit. I want to foster that. And I don't believe you can get that in a top down system. I believe you get that empowering from the bottom up. Each human gets to flourish, gets to in touch with their animal spirit, with their nature, their feral human, and do what they feel intuitively to do. I want to enable that. That's my politics.
And I think we've talked before too, Michael, that you are definitely a person who you understand the world from a very naturalist viewpoint. That you don't try to go against nature at all, and
As a
that
farmer, I'd be a horrible farmer if I went against nature.
You
The
you
whole
have
point
to,
of farming, I've learned
you
is
look at the
you
sky. Okay, it's good. We're looking at rain. You could start, the people think that there's this prejudice against, religion in the sense that, but all people were looking at was trying to understand the world that they found themselves in and how to operate within that system. And so that's what we try to do in America is we try to give, you're never going to have a government that works that operates against a person's free will against his free tendencies to be creative, to create works of art, to create beauty. And if you can keep constraining people, you're never going to see that majesty come out again. You're going to see
100%.
all this brutalism everywhere. I mean, you can't even build a house for crying out loud without it looking like it's just a box with a couple points on it. And so, so um, let's look at this, and we don't want to go on too long. I mean, I'm enjoying this. I love talking to you guys. I hope the world gets to meet you guys. But so who would benefit from the block angle of your platform? I think we talked about that already. Who are the immediate beneficiaries? The taxpayers, right? Would that be a good answer to that? But who would you say who would benefit from blockchain angle of your platform? Who would benefit from that?
Yeah, so other than the auditors and the people just being able to scan through that data, particularly data scientists themselves would be able to sift through that data, filter it, and pull up the number, drill down the numbers, and pull up the actual numbers. Um, Other than that, it's just people who really want transparency and people who are demanding to see those answers. The blockchain is for anyone, for public. It could be for someone out in Uzbekistan or someone in America. It doesn't really matter. But the point is just to get that data on that public graffiti wall permanently, so that anyone who's walking on the sidewalk can just look at the wall and see what that solicitation was or that proposal or whatever the data we want.
Excellent, excellent. I just can't, every time you guys talk, it's like one more miracle after another. You said you had patents pending. I think you spoke about that a few times. What specifically are you protecting? Because that's what patents do. So what are you, this is a part that people want to hear about. Like, how can you protect this, what you guys have? I mean, want to talk a little bit about that? Anybody, doesn't matter. Mike,
Yeah. Yeah,
Daniel?
so we mostly protecting Mike's good ideas and mine as well. But no, they we have 4 patents. Some of them are novel, like brand new ideas that really haven't been patented yet. And what we're doing is kind of just combining existing technologies into something else that's kind of like what the VCR was. It was just a bunch of ideas smushed together into a new function, basically. And so we have one for excise taxes. We have another one for another one of our geolocation voting is really cool. Mike, give me a nod if that's cool to talk about or not. I won't go into depth,
Feel
obviously.
free to jump in. I'm going to want to talk about it if there's time. So you go ahead. I'll follow up after that one.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick synopsis of them. But yeah, that was another part of the beneficiaries who benefits from this. This tooling set that we have not only benefits the people for clarity and the city or municipality for ease of use, but also the the people again in being able to retroactively speak to how it went. So I like the geo voting thing because after say you hire Tom's Plowing Company, then you can log in and say, yeah, they did a great job. It's almost like a government Yelp where you're just like, oh, I love that contractor, they did a great job, or oh, they dug up my yard and now I don't have any petunias, that kind of deal. We can use it for a lot of different things, but the real idea behind these patents is being able to bring existing technologies, like I said, and emerging technologies to something that has been outdated for decades. The fact that City Hall is using Excel spreadsheets for all of their reconciliation is wild. It's sad. Like a lot of the government that I've seen is built on CSVs, and that's just so cumbersome. There's so many opportunities for error that it's almost unfair to town clerks. So why wouldn't you want their job to be easier, more accurate, less of a cognitive load? This is kind of like almost moving from a switchboard operator to a cell phone. We're taking some of that work away, but making it easier. We're not displacing jobs. We're not taking away the opportunity for people to participate in civic opportunities. This is just an upgrade. And it was built on, I know I strayed from this, but some of the biggest impetus was the government telling us that we're going away from paper checks. ACH is going away because we need instant payments. Like that's an actual executive order that was dropped last year. So the whole system is changing, and we're just doing that first to benefit the people.
We're not crazy. We're just early.
We're
That's
just early. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Mike.
yeah.
You mind if I jump in real quick? 'Cause
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do to speak a little more on the patents because there are 4 of them. Like Justin said, 2 of them, there were other things in the relative areas, but they were new ideas. 2 of them were completely novel, greenfield, nothing like it existed in the patent library. I don't want to go too deep on the mechanisms, and we can if we need to, but I just want to assure people the voting piece, it's not a one-to-one voting. It's not like I'm going to pick my elected official. This is the thing, and I'm doing it. The way we're approaching it is a confidence score. So it basically will check the quality of the vote, i.e., your IP is close to this location. Your cell phone tower ping is over here by this town. There's quality scrubs in there to make sure it's not somebody from another country pretending to vote. The goal being that before a service is procured. So if I'm a town and I'm soliciting for a road crew, or just as an example, and we've got 3 road crew options, Bob, Tim's, and Sue's, or whatever it is. They're posted publicly first through our software to a location where people can see it. The townspeople, and again, there's a quality scrub to make sure these are high quality votes, i.e., local people actually saying, I want that thing. and then they can vote for the service before the service is procured. So think about that. Being able to give your town manager, your town select board direction on who and what to pick instead of just saying, oh, you picked a thing. Now I'm frustrated. I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to complain. I'm going to withhold money, whatever it is. Instead, you get a voice on the front end. The example I like to give is say 80% of the town with a high confidence score want plowing vendor A or to road vendor B, and then the town goes for C instead because it's somebody's uncle, somebody, whatever the reason, right? Or just a bad financial decision. And 90% of the town was not aligned with that decision. It incentivizes the people in that town to eat the person who made the bad decision. And I'm not saying I want to cause problems for people. I want that accountability feedback loop to be real and tangible. I want people's voices to matter, not as an afterthought where it's like, yeah, sure, buddy, sit down. We'll take that under consideration. But actually having a voice on the front end and then a reconciliation voice on the back end. Or to Justin's point, if it goes well and the select board picks a great new vendor and everybody likes him and comes back like a government Yelp to say, this vendor was superb. We only want to use that one going forward. Or, this is whatever the case is. I want the best services for the best thing, for the best price, and everybody gets a voice on the front end. That's why it's a novel concept. That's why the patent had nothing like it out there because it's a new idea. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it kind of feels like government 2.0. It kind of feels like an upgrade on the whole model. And so
Well,
that's what I'm going for.
yeah, it definitely it was a necessary, like, if the idea is like we invented a phone, in this case the country, whatever that country, what we call America, then at some point in time this should have already been created. And it's always, when I got involved more deeply with politics, I was really surprised that there was nobody just keeping track of this and how difficult it was to, find out. Like, you can't find RFPs on the most basic products. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
basic projects all
no
across America.
transparent.
There's
Yep.
no
I just want
transparency. You
you
call
said
people,
it
it's
should have
endless
been
phone
done.
calls.
It should have been done. I tried to use the Kanye quote earlier, and I'm going to get it out. You're
Yeah,
not the only one that could have did that, but you were the one that did do that. And that's the Civic-Chain team.
that's what it is. And it is, we're looking at Justin, by the way, if anybody gets a chance to meet him, he uses great analogies, transparent FOIA, government-based Yelp. I mean, just beautifully said. Uh, what, so we just have time for probably two more questions. What, and did you guys want to talk more about exactly like blockchain, what, the technology? Did you want to get into that a little bit more, or did you want to just go along and talk about, like, things like what's considered public data, that kind of thing? Just want to, do you want to talk about like what is public data? Let's, like, want to keep it like more generic versus getting more
Yeah, I think that's
technical.
a great way to go because I want people to know that this is not a way like the voting data. I would be very uncomfortable with my vote being saved on a blockchain. I just want to stress a good example is the fact that the vote occurred is saved on the blockchain. The quality of the vote is saved on the blockchain, but no PII is saved anywhere. There is the potential, and as much as anybody else might not like this, I have to account for the opportunity that's coming up if indeed there is like a Save Act thing, and I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying like a digital ID component. I saw, for instance, the King of England this morning, thou shalt digital ID. Yeah, that's real organic. I see it coming, right? I would be reticent, I would be ignorant to pretend I didn't see that and it wasn't being pushed in this direction. So if indeed that does come, we can connect that, we can make your vote. But the goal is that we do not save any PII. I don't want anybody to say you voted for the wrong thing. We're going to come at none of that. None of that.
Okay.
Dan and Justin can speak to this better, but I would like to just get that on the record.
Yeah, the
So
only thing you'd
if
be
I'm
able
a
to
parent, a small business owner, I live in a town of about 2,000 people, maybe more. I'm not even sure how many live off the grid. This is Maine, right? So we don't know, eating fiddleheads, whatever they do. Um, and I'm just like a concerned citizen. What can I actually do with the information on your platform? And I think we probably covered that a little bit. We can hold people more accountable. We can uh, look at, we do have to hold government accountable. We have to, and we can define the metrics of accountability. And maybe through the towns can begin through this process to upgrade their articles of incorporation or their town charters and stuff, to begin to look at, you have this metric like, okay, we're spending money. It's not being spent well. Here's why we're broke. These are the basic things that people want to know about. Why are we broke? Like at the end of the day, when you pick up your wallet, like there's no money in it, and you go, "Where's my money?" or "What happened to my money? What did I do this week?" Every American should be asking themselves that question. And so, and I think you've already answered really basically, like if you're a parent, small business owner, or just a concerned citizen, what you can do with the platform is hold your, and correct me if I'm wrong, and that's basically what you want to do. You want to give people the tools to hold, you know, themselves and their government accountable, right? I mean, is that a better way to put it, or is that too shorthand? I mean, what do you think? Is that too? That's the way I look at it, and I'm hoping other people see. Um, so, how do you make sure the data you're publishing though is accurate? And I guess you talked about that a little bit. But let's just
Justin
talk
or
about
Dan
that
could
a little
probably
bit
speak to that
more.
really well.
Huh?
I was saying Justin or Dan could speak to that really well. So, gentlemen.
Justin, you want to jump on with the SARS part?
No, that's why we brought you, man. You're the genius.
Uh, this question wasn't really for me, guys. What was the question again? Just say it again.
Oh, what was the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to go through a lot of stuff here, and I'm trying to find out, like, well, um, how do you make sure the data you're publishing is accurate? And I think you covered that a little bit earlier, but
Yeah.
that's what people are going to want to know. How do you know?
There is a sequence of events and data, kind of like a melody of a song, that you can aggregate together, put together, and then out comes a random sequence of numbers and letters, which is we call a hash. And in that world, you can verify. You can't decrypt the data, so you can't see the vendors like EIN numbers or any of the PII information, but you can see the generic stuff, and you can verify with the generic information with that hash. So you'll be able to know what the total pool amounts were, which vendors should be paid out, how often, things like that. I'm trying to think what else could you verify other than proposal solicitations and transactions. I think that's about it, right? Is there one other one, Justin, or is that it?
No, no, that was good. I was trying to think of how we would say it without giving away the whole patent, but
Oops.
no, 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 you did it, and I like the melody part as well.
That,
Uh, that
you
was
know,
really good, but
the
yeah, I'm
question
not
is
I'm
like,
not
how
going
do
to
you
say
keep the
anything
robots
because
from
Mike
hurting
told me not
humans?
to say anything about our secrets. Trade
I
secrets are
just
I'm tight lipped.
we're early, and I know we're breaking new ground right now, and I know there's going to be 1,000 like us right behind us.
Oh, my,
I'm sure other players will come along. They'll say, "Wow, that is a good idea." I'm sure people will hear this in other countries and say, "I want to emulate and create this too." Ultimately, and I want to be honest about this, I'm not even mad at it because it's more people promoting liberty, whether it's me or not. Whether I'm the one who ends up getting your service provider contract for these services or not, it still is a win for everyone. Yes, there's nothing wrong with us making money doing this. And I'm going to come out and say that. I can save people money. I can lower property tax. I can make your fees lower, and I can make money doing it. There's nothing wrong with that. That said, other people will want to do that too. So we have to be kind of careful with our intellectual property. That said, gentlemen, say what you need to, right? Let's be honest and open. That's the most important part. I want people to know that we're authentic and they can trust what we say because we're here to do the do. So ultimately, throw out what you gotta.
Yeah, so people
wants
can
to be,
trust
oh,
us.
sorry, Justin. Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say we have a very good understanding of what PII is. We have worked in this business for a considerable amount of time, and we all of our products are, I guess, transparent, but with a privacy focus. So when we do take information, say with the voting, all of the location is actually scrubbed, and we're not keeping any of your information after the assessment of yes, we are very confident that this person lives in this town. And this is why this we're just generating a score and it's an anonymized anonymized. There we go. But as for the payments and things that I don't know exactly what to speak to about the hashing system, cross-audit linking across our card network and payment rail. But we have been in payments, and we're not looking to change how things work as much as how they're delivered. So we're just trying to deliver efficiencies more than reinventing the wheel. Because honestly, we're not. We're just kind of giving an upgrade to an existing system.
I think that says it all. I mean, I don't really see if America, if you want efficiency, I can't imagine anybody that doesn't want that because it's all about what's coming out of your pocket. So three things that you're providing, and let's pretend like, I understand the technology, which I don't, and most people I know don't. So that's fine. But what we do understand is in principle what it's delivering, and what it's delivering is an opportunity for Americans to, number one, bring back themselves to a center, a value center of the purpose of government, to to hold elected officials accountable. It's to keep out the riffraff, and that to me, in the end, I'd love to get the unions out of things. Personally, the unions are why we have a problem in America completely. They operate outside of the budgetary limitations of everybody, and they hold people like a gun to people's heads in terms of what they basically dictate the flow of budgets. But we're looking at an opportunity for Americans to be, to do the right thing, to do very easily, uh, to participate in their governmental process, which right now is very hard for people. It's very hard for people to say, "Hey, I want to get involved with politics." And when I start talking to people about doing it, it's literally, I have a giant, same thing that you have, a ledger sheet. Well, what do you want to do? These are the steps, and you've seen that. You've seen my presentation. Here are the steps. Here are some of the things you can do, and it's a wall of boring for people. It's a wall of, it is, and it's hard for people to understand that there's so much to do. And generally, like if you talk to Tom DeWeese, guys like with the American Policy Center, he writes an entire like book on actionable steps. I mean, the John Birch Society has actionable steps. And none of it has to do with waving a flag. None of it has to do with standing on the side with a sticker attached to your head. Your flag decal doesn't get you into heaven anymore. That kind of thing. So you have to have a way for people to do the things that are necessary, that are very, very difficult. And that's what's so attractive to me, because I know what those steps are myself, because I've been doing this for a while. Nobody wants to write all this down. Nobody wants to sit in a town meeting for 60 hours figuring out what somebody's trying to say. You can see all this stuff in real time. And this is what the beauty of it is. It's
Yeah.
giving
Well,
everybody
that's what I was saying, like the Twitter files example. Like, I don't want to dig through 60,000 pages of shenanigans to find out the who done it, but I would love to see a nested thread. Here's the budget for this county. Here's the biggest waste. Here's the best opportunities for improvement. Here's the best spend. This is, I want to see people argue about who's the most transparent and who's the most efficient with their budget.
There we
Look
go.
at how, and I say this, and it's not just like, oh, there's bad guys out there. One of the reasons why is like I look around Maine. I love Maine, but I'm tired of seeing rotting barns. I'm tired of seeing crippling infrastructure, just crumbling, falling apart. And I see that. I also understand in the investments world, because you got to fix both sides of the equation. You can't just fix the money. You have to bring in investment too. You have to make the area grow again. And so I look at that, but I also have friends that are in the industrial space, and they talk about if you want industrial investment or you want a new factory, you want a new, like, we have a lot of old mills in Maine, amazing, beautiful buildings that are empty with broken windows. I would love to see those functional in some way, shape, or form again. If you want to bring in that investment money, you show investors we have clean books. Our books are clean. There's no fraud. Your spend here will be effective. The town will benefit and you'll benefit. And it makes it easy for big moneyed interests, because everybody's, the big money interests are bad. Not really. Some of them just want to do business. People want to make money. People want to win. And I want the town to win
They
and I
always
want the
do. Yeah.
investors to win. I do. And if they get clean books, it makes it too easy for everyone.
That's beautiful. I'll tell you, I love the way you guys talk. You guys should all be novelists as far as I'm concerned, because you guys have great
Dan is. My man
language.
wrote a book. It's a strong book. I
Amazon.
love it.
Well, one of the things that I know a lot of international investors. They don't come to America because they just don't feel like it's honest. They
Mm.
just they don't want to bring their money here. I mean, you can go
I
online.
want them to want to bring money here. I like when money comes here. I like when people have nice things.
Right.
I like when roads are nice. I like when bridges are safe. I want that. I want that for my family. I want that for my neighbors. I want that for
Yeah.
your kids.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but I think honesty is key, Matt. That's really it. Yeah, and that ties back to like our idea of politics, and maybe that's what I'm trying to get at, is that without honesty, without words meaning things, then there's no point of this. So with doublespeak or what plausible deniability, we're never going to make the headway any
So
meaningful
this is a
change.
rallying point, and
Yeah.
that's what I think Civic-Chain is. It's a rallying point. It's a lot more than just technology. It's an opportunity for Americans to be honest again, to decide what's important. And we can't look at it any other way. You're either going to be going to complain about your government all the time, or you're going to do something about it. Well, here's your opportunity.
Yeah, the truth doesn't need a party.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
that?
And honestly, he said the truth doesn't need a party. And honestly, complaining is great. Like people like it's a good way to let off steam. It's a good
Yeah,
way to,
sure.
and I've heard so much in the truther space, so much in the freedom space. Oh, this problem, that problem, that problem, that problem. Let's talk solutions. We can fight the past all day long. I've done it my whole life. I'm tired of it. Let's
Yeah.
build the future. Stop fighting the past, build the future.
Yeah, and really, I totally agree. I try to end every presentation I do with some basic solutions.
Mm.
Everybody wants to end the Fed. Well, unplug from the Fed. Build your own communities of interdependency on each other and your own currency or whatever that currency is. It could be banana leaves. I don't care. But there are ways for towns, and especially in Maine, which has so much ample planting. There's no reason for us not to create infrastructures for ourselves. I mean, the Muslims are doing it. They come here from the other country. The Hmong came in like during what 1989 or 19 sometime around that under Reagan. I don't know, it was under Reagan or somebody. And they came in and they form infrastructures. That's the first thing they do is they figure out a way to feed each other. That's it. We don't even do that in America. We have farmers like yourself and uh, you know uh, uh, Brian Roy, out there in Bowdoin. We have great growing opportunities
Yeah.
for people, and we are working on that. By the way, I'm working with a state legislator to figure out how communities can become truly self-reliant. Forget about sustainability. That's a stupid thing. But anyway, so is there
One
anything
point I
else
do
that
want to
you
make
would
real
like
quick,
to
Matt.
say?
Real quick before we move on. You're talking about the Fed, talking about currencies and all that, unplugging. Ultimately, I'm a competition of money maximalist. I think competition in any market, a free market, is the best solution for everyone involved. It pushes for the best product, and honestly, it brings prices down. So ultimately, I would love to see Civic-Chain get to a point where the currency that the town uses ultimately, or the HOA, is ultimately up to them. If you want to, we built it where one, we don't need a currency layer. Two, we can use it with stable coins. It's a big stable coin platform ultimately that could push billions to ultimately trillions in flows if indeed it goes that way. And I use for reference, a lot of people don't like stable coins, but I use like the Genius Act for reference. You can like them or not like them, but they are tied to US treasuries right now. Every stable coin that has to be backed by a US treasury note of 91 days or less. And so it's tied to the short end of the curve or extended long end of the curve, like a 10-year bond with 91 coupon days left on it. You can use that. I would love to get to the point where towns can use Bitcoin. I would love to get to the point where towns can use like a digitized, commoditized silver. Like for instance, I know Texas was working on a silver or gold backed digital currency convertible. I would take $1 from the state of Texas that I can convert for an ounce of silver any day over a fiat paper backingless money printer go burr note all
Yeah.
day, every day. So
Well,
ultimately,
towns,
I
towns
want to
they
maximize
could
that.
use their own silver, right? They can't they, Michael? They could use their own gold. They could,
Towns
slugs.
can do it. Towns, this is one message I do want to get out here, Matt, for sure. Towns with your bylaws, you can do pretty much whatever you want. I'm going to be real honest. Government is a corporation, and I mean that. I mean that in the literal sense. Towns are corporations, counties are corporations, states are corporations. I can go look up the country of Canada right now in the Security and Exchange Commission's own Edgar website. Edgar, like the man's name. SEC Edgar, look it up. You can go pull corporate legal filings for the Corporation of Canada. You can pull it for the corporation known as the Commonwealth of Australia. You can pull it for the Corporation of Hungary, which used to be doing business as the Republic of Hungary. These are all corporations, right? we should take them back. It's Taco Bell with guns. Let's figure out how to make it serve us. I just wanted to get that out because it's important. We shouldn't be scared of these things. They are not our enemy. They're a body we can use to do whatever we want with. And I want to see people be successful with their families with it, ultimately.
So how can people get a hold of you guys? What's the best way? You have, is your information on your website? What is your website? It's, for everybody that's listening.
I'll throw it in Civic-Chain.com. I want to stress it has a hyphen, Civic-Chain, Civic-Chain. So if you find anything else out there, it's not us. The best way to get in contact with us, I am Michael at Civic-Chain.com. So if you want to reach out to me for any engagements, anything professional, I'm available. The best way to reach out is info at Civic-Chain.com. That'll be for whatever you need, anything you want a connection, you want anything like that, feel free to reach out there and we can respond through that. Our team will definitely prioritize it. So,
Well, God bless you all, the three of you. I hope we'll see each other next week, and we'll go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. So thank you very much for coming on.
Really appreciate your time, Matt.